Hello and welcome on this presentation on LTI. LTI stands for Learning Tools Interoperability, and I'm going to try to cover the scope from what is LTI now and where it's going. Thus, from B to C, B stands for Basic Lunch, and Basic Lunch is really the core of LTI. And C stands for Caliper, and Caliper is one of the emerging services that is leveraging the LTI environment. So first of all, what is LTI? What problem does it try to solve? So it originates mostly from the learning management system world, so also known as LMS. An LMS system like Moodle, Blackboard, Canvas, Desire to Learn. It's basically a place where an instructor can go and find all the tools in one place to build the online presence of the course. So again, an LMS will provide a set of tools like course outline, ways to upload files, blogs, forums, discussion boards, quizzing, and a gradebook. All of that in a single convenient package. But sometimes when you're building your course, you're looking for something else. You need to use other tools. And this is where, let's say in this example here, I'm going to take the example where I'm trying to build a chemistry course. And I found somewhere else some kind of a simulation website that I would like to use in my course. And the one way I could do it is use the simple tools that you find in every learning management system that lets you just add a web link into your course outline. So you add a web link here, and when the instructor or student clicks on the web link, then you just go to this website. Obviously here, well, you probably have to log in again, and you probably need to navigate to some location or establish some kind of context because this is a dumb lunch. What would be really nice is if this link would convey important context information about the lunch you're doing so that the experience here could be bootstrapped. So what kind of information would be nice to know to get on lunch? It would be nice to know who the user is, where the user is, and where is the idea here, in which learning context, in which course, and also what is the intent of the lunch. For example, what activity do you want to lunch? So what LTI actually proposes to do is to provide the standardized way to express this information in a linked lunch. So all of those become standardized parameters. Those parameters are passed now in a form-based fashion, so it's a post. And what really LTI provides is a common vocabulary to define this context. So we're going to have a look at the specifications themselves. So here I'm going to navigate to the MS website, go to the standards, and go to LTI set. And you see there are many things, and we'll cover most of them later on. But we're going to go back to the very first iteration of the specification, which we're defining the basic lunch. And so we see here that they're defining the basic LTI lunch data, all this contextual information. They're defining the set, vocabulary, and how to define them. So for example, you're going to find a user ID, and that it uniquely identifies the user. You're going to find the roles, and not only the roles is the attribute is name, but also the enumeration. What kind of roles are possible? Instructors, learner, the names of the users, the context ID. Context here refers to the learning context. Therefore, usually you will find here is a course ID, course identifier. The type of course that is a course title. So you see a lot of information that are very relevant in a learning context when you're launching a learning tool. So if you go back, drawing here, so all of this information are quite useful, but they're only useful if they can be trusted. So you need to establish a trust between the two systems. So to do that, the spec relies on the idea of a shared secret. So both systems, the tool consumer here, where you want to use the tool, so it's called the tool consumer, and the tool provider need to communicate and exchange a shared secret, basically. So both systems are going to store on each of their side a secret. How this secret is exchanged is not part of the original specification. It's basically out of band administrators ringing the other one, but it remains known only to the administrators of both sides and is installed securely on the server databases. So basically each systems holds a secure database of secrets. And well, secrets, as a tool consumer, you might be using multiple tool providers, and multiple tool providers may be using different tool consumers. You need a way to associate, to identify a tool consumer and tool provider relationship as done using a key. So a consumer key. So now for a given key, one, you can have in a database a given secret. Okay. And the same one will be installed on the tool provider side. So now, when you have this link, it's a post. It contains the who, the where, the what. It will also now contain the key, basically identifying the originator of that request. And it will contain a signature. So what is a signature? A signature is basically taking this information that you find here and adding the secret. And the secret never goes on the wire. It remains here before to launch. And the secret is used in a recipe to blend all this information and the secret to give a single signature. For example, something like that. And the signature then is passed on the tool provider, and tool provider is going to use a key to find the secret. Then it's going to execute the same recipe and see if the signature matches. If the signature do not match, it means that the secret was not right, and so it cannot be trusted. But if the signatures match, then that means that the system that sends the request also had the same secret, so can be trusted. And so the recipe is very important, because if you get anything wrong in the build-up of this recipe, you might have a wrong signature, making you think that it's an untrusted link, even though it's actually trusted, but it just happens that one did not agree exactly on how to do the same recipe, and therefore you get different signature. So rather than trying to reinvent the right recipe, IMS is just reusing the OAuth 1.0 form signing process. So it's important to understand that IMS is not using OAuth in its entirety. It's just using the OAuth means of signing a payload, a form-based payload. So basically one could see that the LTI 1.0 is mostly a set of well-known parameters, vocabulary that defines the context, plus a way to secure it using an OAuth signature. And that's basically might be a simple way to see what is 1.0. So now let's put this in practice and actually add an actual LTI link in a real learning management system. And it just happens I have a little instance of Moodle running, so I'll use that, but it's going to be the same mechanics if you use Blackboard or Canvas or Desire to Learn or any other LMS. So the first thing is to find actually an app you would want to use. And so where do you find apps? One place to go is to go to the IMS Global website, which has a list of certified LTI apps. And they are in two buckets. On the left side here is the tool consumer, the one that are able to consume tools actually. And on the right side is all the tool providers, all the various kind of tools you can add into your learning management systems using LTI. And another way, and probably more convenient way to find apps, is to use the EduApps website here. And on the EduApps website, it's an LTI collection of apps, and you can actually even, I think on the Canvas LMS, directly auto-installs those. But anyway, so here we're gonna look for ChemVantage, which happen to be a free chemistry-based tool that's LTI compliant. So I registered with that, and I actually got from them key and secret, which are here, and actually a launch URL. So let's actually put that in place into my course. So I would go into my course, and I'm going to say I'm going to add an activity. In that case, it's an external tool, which actually stands for LTI, and I'm going to add one. Close that here, and I'm going to give it activity name ChemVantage assessment. Right, so I need the launch URL. but I also need to enter the key and secret, and those are found into the more section. So for that I need to put a key. And the secret. All right. And that's it. So we haven't talked about privacy yet, and you see you can pass a lot of parameters, and typically when you install a tool into your learning management system, you can your learning management system will ask you what kind of data are you okay to send to the external tool. And typically here it's okay to send a name and email address. We can actually, if you uncheck those, then those would not be included into the LTI launch, and on the LTI launch you would only find the user ID, but no way to associate it to an actual user. So we'll get back to the grades a little bit later. So we're gonna save this, and we'll return to course. So I was saying LTI gives you the context of the launch, let's say the who, the where, and the what. But I've not been very precise on the what. What do we launch when we click on that? And that's not been very clear, because as you see here, the URL is river and specific. You just go to CampVantage. But I said it was an assessment. So how does the binding occur? And when we see here, actually when we launch, actually it's asking me, okay, this is a new link. I've never seen that link before. So how do you want, as an instructor, to set it up? And I'm going to say, for example, it's going to be a quiz. Pick one here randomly. Okay, and now by doing that, I've actually in CampVantage I've bound the actual link to this assignment, and this is done. So now if I go back to the course, and actually I'm gonna open up the network tab here, network, and try to narrow it a little bit so it can be seen. I'm gonna do the launch, and here we see that it's a post, so that's the LTI launch to the CampVantage, and let's see what's in that post actually. So we'll find here as part of the parameters all the LTI parameters, so the link ID, and the link ID here is really so the thing that's basically binding this link to this assessment on CampVantage side, and a few information like the description, as the user ID, the roles of that user, that I'm currently an instructor. And because I'm an instructor, then I can customize the quiz here because it's instructor only, and a few things like my name. So you see, I was automatically signed into that tool, right? So that's kind of it here for the example. Now I'm going to get back a little bit more on this idea of resource link ID and the what. A resource link ID is a unique identifier for a given link. So that means each and every link inside a tool consumer have a distinct link ID. Therefore, when I'm creating this new link here, then the LMS is going to give it, for example, a new identifier. Let's say, for example, this is going to be 71. So the first time I do launch, I do execute that link here, the resource link ID will be 71, and the tool provider will see that it's never seen that link before. And because I'm launching as an instructor, it will provide me with a way to bind 71 with something. So in that case, I would say 71, I'm going to pick a quiz. And from that point on, from a tool provider standpoint, every time you see the link ID coming up 71, you say, okay, 71 maps to that quiz, therefore I could directly jump to that quiz. So that's the way you actually associate a link to a very specific activity inside the tool provider. But there are quite a few shortcomings with that approach. The main shortcoming is that, first of all, you need to initialize the link as an instructor. Therefore, if a student exercises the link before you, then you will have nowhere to go because the link has not been initialized yet. But more importantly, the issue is that what happens when you start copying that course. Because if you copy the course here, if I make a copy of that course for the next semester, then I'm actually creating a new link, and therefore that link will have a new ID. So it could be like, I don't know, 76. And now when I exercise 76, and I go there, then again it's going to be unbounded. So when I copy a course that has LTI links, with this method I would have to go and reinitialize each and every link one after another. So there is the idea, some kind of guidelines that are being proposed to pass on launch a source resource link ID. So in which case we could say that the resource link ID, the 76 would be actually coming up from 71. But those are those limitations also, because it implies 71 is still actually a viable link. It's not been erased. And also it doesn't work if you try to make a course package and try to export it to another learning management system, because 71, 76 is very, those numbers are very relevant to that integration and they're not very portable. What we would really want is actually to set up parameters on the link when you create the link, and those parameters would say, when you create the link, you would say this link actually goes to quiz, and it says it's going to be quiz A. It says this link I would like it to go to quiz A. And actually LTI lets you enter parameters, and they're called custom parameters, and we can see it as an example. So even though Vantage doesn't use that, I can just illustrate the point here how that would work. So I would go here, and then in show more I would say, so, okay, see, I can add custom parameters, and now I could say, for example, I could say activity equal quiz A, and I would save that. And now when I relaunch it, we could see it here, params, and you see custom underscore activity. So by specification, any additional parameters, in order not to collide with core specification parameters, are always prefixed with custom underscore. So I have entered activity quiz A, and now this is passed to tool provider as custom underscore activity quiz A. And you see here, by doing this extra work when I was setting up the link, then I pass enough context so that the activity cannot automatically start. I don't need to do a late binding. And also this has the advantage that now if I do a course extract, a course export, and part of the export of the link definition will be, those parameters will be included in this export. So when I re-import in another course somewhere else in another learning management system, it will still say that it has these parameters of quiz A. And the same when if I copy the course, this will transfer. So really this is the preferred way to use custom parameters. But of course it's a bit less convenient, because now you can just put a link. You have actually to add these parameters into the edit interface. So we see here in the specification how you pass a key value. So really, again, it's prefixed by custom underscore. So you see you can pass statics values, but it's also a very important thing moving forward with the LTI specification is actually you can pass what is called substitution parameters. So you see they start with a little $. And what they mean is that now here, this you would like it to be resolved by the tool consumer before to launch to the tool provider. So what this string says, it says, okay, give me the course section, time frame begins. So that's going to give you the start of the course, and before the launch, this is resolved by the tool consumer, and actually the actual value is put as a parameter. So that's a very important mechanics, and so it taps into the substitution parameter, and the substitution parameter vocabulary is actually defined as part of the specification, and you can see it here, all the different kind of vocabularies that's possible. But the trick here is that it's not because it's defined that it's supported by the tool consumer, and more often than not, those would not be supported outside of the most obvious ones. But the substitution parameters, as they become more and more important, their support is getting wider and wider. And actually LTI 2 really relies on the substitution parameters, and it's a more flexible way to inject yourself information that's relevant to the context of your launch, rather than having a very long fixed set of parameters. This way, when you set up your link, you can have custom parameters with custom substitution values that are resolved at launch time. So one last thing on LTI integration setup. So you see, as an instructor, I can add my own LTI links, but often this is actually done at the administration level, where the administrator of the LMS will actually set up a trust relationship with the tool providers that can then be reused for all the courses inside the LMS. So we're going to see an example here. Now, rather than logging in as an instructor, I'm going to log in as an administrator of the LMS. And here I find LTI. So I can add an external tool configuration. And I'm going to use the same information I used before. And now I'm going to save the changes. And by doing that, I've created a new tool that's globally accessible to all courses. So let's log out and log back in as an instructor. And now here I'm gonna add. Now here I'm going to turn edit on, and I'm going to add an activity resource. And you see here I can add an external tool again. And you see and I can give it my name, ChemVantage admin tool. I can put the URL. So you see here, by using the domain name, Moodle was able to realize that this is actually a tool configuration that's already exists. So it doesn't. I don't have to enter again so I don't have to enter again the shared secret and password. It's all set up already, so I can just save and return to the course now. And now the link is here, and let's see if it works. I see it works. It's basically the same thing I need to associate to an activity of some kind. And yep. So again, as an admin, I can set up a tool. And when I create a link, the LMS is going to detect, based on the domain, on the path to the tool, it's going to detect that there is already an existing configuration. Therefore, the trust has already been established, and it can do an LTI launch to that domain. So the instructor don't have to worry about getting the proper credentials to launch into the tool. This can be set up at the LMS level.